This is Mxnzplain. My name is Kabelo.
I'm Kabelo and the two of us decided to begin this journey of just creating spaces for men to reflect on what it means to be a man in the 21st century. Our task is really to journey with men, listen to different stories, but to create an environment where we can all just learn and grow with each other. It's a journey.
Yep. So if you're interested in mansplaining about their spirituality, their traumas, and all things important about being a man in the 21st century, this is the place for you to come to.
Mxnzplain is for me, for you, it's for all of us. So join in and be part of our journey.
Welcome to Mxnzplain. My name is Kabelo. I'm with my good friend,
Kabelo,
who is also our resident pastor.
Why did you even have to go there?
Our resident spiritual person. Welcome to Mxnzplain. Today we're going to be talking about men, as always, but men particularly as it relates to money. How do we deal with money? What is the idea of money? How do we interact with money in our society? How does it impact us as banna, as amatota? And just share a couple of our own stories around our experiences with having money, not having money, how we've wasted it, how we've made some of it, hopefully, and how we intend to keep it going forward. Because whether we like it or not, having some sense of money is important for the legacy that you want to create as a person on the earth. Whether you have it or you don't, your legacy will be linked to the fact that you have it or you don't. Yeah?
Look, yeah, I agree. So, but nonetheless, welcome to Mxnzplain. And I think for me, you know, the conversation around money is always a very tense one because it's not a usual conversation that men have when we are out having drinks and chilling, right? Yeah. But I think also you realize that we all have very different relationships with money. Yeah. Some of us are more flashy than others. Yeah. Some of us are very conservative. And some of us pretend like we don't have any, and some of us just don't have, right? And the reality is, in most friendship circles of men, you will have a mixture of all of that in one space. But I think for me, what I'm really keen to really get into a conversation about is really around what has evolved in terms of your understanding of money and how it has worked for you and vice versa. So what is it exactly that's evolved for you specifically when it comes to your relationship with money?
What's evolved? So I have and have always had an interesting relationship with money. So like from when I can remember, from my earliest memories, I've always known that I wanted to have a lot of money. But I didn't know what a lot meant. Okay. But I've always known that I would do almost anything to make sure.
Almost anything?
Can I meet your pie? You know what I mean? And so that's always been my idea of like, yo, man, work really hard, go to school. I went to school, varsity, degrees, whatever, because I wanted to make money. Okay. It wasn't because I wanted to be the smartest guy out there. I was like, okay, what is the thing that I need to do in order to make money? So that's always been like a foundational thing for me. And it comes from a lot of places, which I guess we'll get into at some point here. But the evolution of how my relationship with money over time has also kind of changed, right? Okay. So in the beginning, it was like, have money for the sake of having money so I can have nice things. Yeah. Number one, right? Whatever nice things were defined as different stages of my life. To now, it's have money or try to make a lot of money so that you can have a certain lifestyle. So there's a certain comfort that I want. And that comfort is not just for me, it's like for my family. So like, you know, this is how I want my kid to live, this is how I want my wife to live, this is how I want my mom to live, this is how I want my siblings to kind of have a lifestyle, because it does have a bit of, we come from the black tax culture. Yeah. So black tax plays in there, right? So there's that. And it's become this away from the frivolous, almost wasteful years where I was like, okay, let's make money so I can have this car, have these clothes, be able to go to these restaurants with these chicks or these women. My bad. Because, and that was the thing, right? And so that's part of the evolution. We can talk about kind of what that looks like and what's led to those particular things. The interesting question that I'd like to ask of you and maybe other people that are watching here is, do you actually know what your relationship with money is? Do you have a relationship with money? Like if you think about relationship, you have a relationship with your wife, your relationship with your mother, your relationship. Do you have a relationship with money?
I think I have a dependence.
Okay.
I have a dependence, not entirely a relationship. And I think when I think of relationship, when it comes to my family and my child and so forth, I think the expectation is very different.
Yeah.
Whereas with money, for me, it's always about, how does it sustain me? How do I keep it? How do I avoid going back to poverty? And I found that to be probably one of the biggest drivers to a shift in my behavior.
Yeah.
In the sense that, the lifestyle you spoke about is, I don't want...
Sorry. This will make it into the episode. Cool.
Okay, now chest out.
Why not? We're talking about money. Let me get my chest out. Okay.
Yeah. So I think for me, So I think for me, it's not entirely a relationship. It's more of an appreciation, right? Of understanding that it plays a huge role in what I'm capable of doing. It also plays a huge role in what I'm able to provide beyond my presence here. Especially now that I have a child, it's no longer just about me. It's about what am I leaving behind so that she is slightly more comfortable, or rather that she has a bit of a boost starting off her own life, so that, and I think the whole culture of black tax, right, is, I'm hoping that whatever it is that we've put in place, myself and my wife now, reduces that pressure from my daughter needing to take care of us, right?
But that sounds to me like it's a plan for money.
Yes.
It doesn't sound like a relationship with money.
So that's what I'm saying, that it's more of a dependence and an attitude towards it, not a relationship.
Yeah. I think I'm specifically looking for the relationship. So for instance, if you double click on my question, right?
Okay.
So how do you make money?
Ooh, there are many ways. Oxford Road, one. Jokes. No, look, I think so for me, it's my income norm, obviously, from the work that I do, my permanent employer, but I also have a company that I run on the side, and there's money that's been put away in different spaces to try make a bit of cash.
So you make money from your job, so you go, you work, and you have a business, effectively.
So for me, those are my two streams of income, because I think the idea of just living with a one income type setup is not sustainable. And so that's, for me, that's my way of making money. And I think, with some of the interest that you earn from tax-free accounts and all sorts of other things, that is making money. But also that's money that's just sitting there and creating a bit of profit. It's not like moving mountain type money, but the reality is there's another source that is at work even when I'm not at work.
Do you find yourself thinking about different ways of making money all the time? Like making more money?
Honestly, 100%.
Okay.
Which was never me.
Why?
It's that, like I said, it's that attitude of, I need to maintain the lifestyle that I have. I need to maintain the nice things that I have. But the only way to maintain that is to make more. I can't make less, because if I make less, the standards drop.
The standards of lifestyle?
Yes, will drop, right? So in order for me to maintain what I'm used to, I need to find more ways of creating wealth beyond my lifetime, but also wealth that allows me a longevity of enjoyment,
Of the kind of life you're living.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting, right? And again, very personal question. So if your lifestyle were to change tomorrow to like 50% of what you currently are able to live, right?
Yeah.
For whatever reason. It could be money, it could be, I don't know, maybe it's, you're just unable to earn any more money. What would that do for you as a man in your masculinity and your manhood? How do you think it would go?
So I think there's there's multiple things that could happen, right? But I think for me, it's probably a gift and a curse. Is I've had to reboot and restart multiple times in my career, and so I'm not fearful of having to start again, right? And I think for me that has always been something that's kept me going is the fact that I've had to restart multiple times, and so if that was to happen for me, it's not I've lost Bunabaka, but it becomes more of how do we find new avenues, because the ones that we had access to and they worked for us for a while now are not working. So how do I find new avenues to actually create a bit of money again? So yeah, I think it's that ability to rebuild.
So the lifestyle change wouldn't impact you, per se?
I think at a social and egotistic level, definitely will. Because I think I'm used to, dressing a certain way, going to certain places, and I would have to take a step back from a lot of that, which obviously would have people asking questions. But I think for me, that's where you retrain your mind to say my priorities are different. And I think that's the beauty about getting older is you start to learn that sometimes the opinions that people have about where you find yourself in your life actually mean very little. It's really, it boils down to, is what you have sustainable? Can you maintain it? And can you keep it for as long as possible? And probably safeguard it? And if the answer to that is yes, then let's rebuild.
Okay. And you may be wondering why I'm going down this rabbit hole, right? So
I was about to ask you, where are we going with this?
So the thing I've noticed mostly about most people when it comes to money and the role it plays in their life is most people money is a symptom of other things. So it's like, I'm a slave to this lifestyle, so therefore I need money to do this. I'm a slave to this habit, therefore I need a lot of money to do this. I'm a slave to, I don't know, this is the car I drive, so therefore I have to make this money, right? And that usually is the thing that drives people's behavior around what they do with their money when they get it, or what they choose to do or spend their living hours doing in order to get that kind of money. Now, the issue that we see it, right? You saw recently, I think we had this chat a couple of episodes ago, we just mentioned it. There was a guy recently, dude defrauded his company. But if you look at the back of what he was doing with his money, it was to quote unquote, shine on Instagram.
Please the masses.
Unnecessary stuff, blah, blah. But now his life is gone, right? He's been caught. He's probably going to go to jail or whatever. Will probably not have the opportunities afforded to him in his life going forward that will allow him to be able to pay that money back. So this is debt forever.
Or even make it back.
Right, or whatever. Right? So he's probably going to be in debt for the remainder of his living life. Was that worth it? Is the question now. When I look at this guy, I'm and Donna, you're young, you're probably really smart, and you can do a lot of other. Was that worth it? And then the question that keeps coming up for me is, okay, why do men feel such pressure to be able to show a certain lifestyle? And in order to be able to do that lifestyle, there's an element of finance that's linked to it, right? And then you go out and you do all sorts of things in order to be able to make this money. It's almost like money has so the relationship most people have with money is money has a direct impact on how I feel as a person and how I value myself, and also how society values me. But is that good? Should that be? Man, is that good, bro?
I think it's unhealthy, right? When the whole conversation about the impact of social media in terms of how we live our lives and the things that we put up, right? It's you realize that there's so much pressure to put out, right? So it's more like money has become a means for creating content, but not content, right? That was philosophical right there. Yeah. Right. So I think there's a lot of that, right? Where money is creating content for all of us, but not many of us are content in our own lives and in the things that we're able to to produce and to get, right?
Okay.
And I think for me, I was saying to you earlier on, one of the things that struck me with my wife, right? Well, we're still dating at that point in time, was as we realized that the relationship was about to get serious. For the first time ever in any relationship I've ever been in, this woman said to me, do you have debt? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, do you have debt? Like, do you have accounts? I was like, yeah, I have a credit card. I owe. And she's like, okay, how much do you owe? I want to see it on paper. So I then, for the first time, had to look at, okay, how much do I owe my credit card? Pulled it out. And the one thing that my dad had always taught me was so when it comes to my credit card, I should never have a credit limit that is above what I earn, right? Because his argument was that if you lose your job, whatever salary you get, you should be able to pay off your credit card immediately. Mm-hmm. So I've always kept my credit card like very low, right? Yeah. So when I looked at what I was owing at that point in time, I think I was owing I think it was 12 grand or whatever it was, right? And then she was like, any other accounts? I was like, yeah, I have a sports scene account. I used to work at Truworths when I was in first year to make some extra cash. I have that account too. So I looked at those things, and then she was like, well, if this relationship is going to move forward, I need all of that to be paid off.
How did that make you feel in the conversation?
So initially when we had the conversation, I was pissed off, right? Because I'm just like, okay, guys, this is none of your business, right? And I felt a bit emasculated, because for me it was one of those where it's just like, why is this woman trying to control me, right? And I think with me, especially at that point, I was still journeying towards ministry, and so my salary was still fairly low, and my business had not started. So at that point, my wife earned significantly more than me. And I won't even dare say, my wife still earns significantly more than me because of the line of work that she's in, right? So you're now sitting there like, okay, she earns more than me. Now she's asking me about debt. Now she's asking me about that. And it becomes about my ego and the whole thing of, okay, so now you want to control me, right? And then after we had gone through that, it was a thing of, okay, so how much do you earn, and how long will it take you to pay all of these things off, right?
And you were comfortable telling your wife how much you earned, or your girlfriend at the time?
Yeah, I didn't really have an issue.
Do you think most men are like that? Most men are comfortable to take that?
I really doubt. I don't know. I think it's social conditioning, right? I think we come from a generation of indoda must provide. Okay. And the statement of indoda must provide also, I think, is quite limited and sometimes lacks depth. Because when we say indoda must provide, what are we talking about, right? What is provision? Is provision the amount of money that I bring into the home? Is provision the amount of presence and security that I present to the home? Is provision just the attention that I pay to my child and to the small little things around the house that no one really sees? Is that provision? And if it is provision, then is it enough? Or do I need to come with a bank balance that is sitting, quite significantly high in order for me to be recognized as a man in my household? But I think what I had to learn at that point in time was that this individual that I was courting actually wanted to create more of a partnership and less of a indoda must provide environment. And so I had to unlearn some of those things, right? And the ego behind, as the man, I'm seen to be the one bringing in more money into the system. Then I looked at how do I reposition my value in the relationship outside of money, right? So I had to learn how to be a good partner without using money as a crutch.
As part of the equation.
Yeah,
as a big part of
exactly. So when you start making decent money, you've already learned other abilities of surviving and navigating the relationship without the money. So the money just becomes like an add-on to make everything else flourish, right?
That's actually an interesting point. I'm not sure if, the thing with this podcast is that parts where I'm like, I wish we had a woman here to ask that question. Right?
Fair.
That thing you've just said, where like, you were forced to learn other things about how you become valuable in a relationship.
Yes.
At that point, because of the situation financially and other things, but now you earn substantially more, and now you still have the toolkit of those other things that you learned. Yeah. Whereas most dudes, or how society is placed, and you also mentioned it, is like, unless I don't see.
You don't have value.
But also, I don't know as guys. Yeah. You actually, most men, I don't think, feel the need to place importance or prioritize other things in the
Yeah.
relationship that make relationships work, right? Which is why I would say this to like my younger brother and some of my friends. I'm like, you know, I listen to some of the things that, you know, some women friends will say to me, or people that I know that are females or whatever, about dudes and money. And I'm like, you know, men are not stupid.
Yeah.
I know, most men know, that if I'm in an equation or in a situation with you, and my value as the dude is a financial value,
Yeah.
I know that. I'm not like...
And I work it.
And I work it.
Yes.
Right?
You milk it to
and
the last
sometimes,
cent.
unfortunately, it works out in the most heinous ways.
Yes.
And we don't condone that at
Yeah.
all. But what surprises me is that most, you know, kind of the women around me, or that kind of accept that as that's the man's role, some of them actually assume that dudes don't see this thing. Okay, I'm a user. Like, and then if you are using the guy for money, best believe he's using you
for something else.
And he knows that the money is the thing that, right? Now the psychology behind that, or the thing that leads you, the trauma that leads you to being like that as the dude, I think that's part of the issue that we have in society, where men and women can't find each other.
Yeah.
Like, you can't meet each other at a human level.
Yeah.
Because whether you like it or not, this thing is transactional, huh?
It is.
Good transaction, this thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you may sit there, you know, I love you, babe. Yes, I love you, babe. Okay, babe, credit card. Okay, babe. You know, like, it's transactional,
Yeah.
bro. So, and how do you then fix people's relationships? How do you build relationships? How do you build societies where we can see each other as human beings outside of this trinkety kind of thing? Sorry for going on a tangent,
Yeah.
but this is,
No.
I think this is important, right? Like,
No, it is. Because I think, like I was saying, that I think with the whole social media era that we're living in,
Yeah.
that has put extra pressure
Yeah.
on all of that, right? Because now it becomes about what can you buy, so that we can show off, right?
pay for play.
And unfortunately, you know, when you look at, I was having a chat with one of my mentees, right? And he was saying to me, he's like, you know, as a 27-year-old man who's just gotten into the working world, I'm still trying to figure out how to get my first apartment, buy myself a decent car. I'm still looking at setting up myself.
Yeah.
The women that I want, I'm competing with men who are in their 60s, who have created major wealth for themselves. I'm competing with men who are in their 50s, who also have quite a bit of money. And it's like, I'm also competing with you, with the likes of you, who are in your late 30s,
what kind
and
of
you
society
earn more than me.
What kind of society is that?
Right. And that was his question. He's like, how do we find partners? Because your generation and our dads, who have more money and more access than us, are now...
You're hitting on the same women.
You know, we're hitting on the same women. Yeah. And he was just saying, he's like, you know, the value of what money actually does is beyond the appreciation that we actually have. Because for people who want quick fixes, you know, getting a 6-year-old man, whether he looks healthy or not is irrelevant, but if you have money, you can play, right? So you could be a hardworking 26-year-old, but because you have not built your wealth yet, because you have not set yourself up to be distinct financially, you're not considered worthy. And that creates a very bad dynamic in relationships, but also that's where abuse comes from, right? Because young men like that realize this is the trend, and what it then becomes for them is, okay, you know what, let me build as much as I can so that when I get to my 40s, I can then make sure that these 25-year-old, 24-year-old women know who the man is, right? And money then becomes what they use to control these girls because they couldn't get them when they were at that age, right? And that's the that's the weirdness of what money does for men. It's almost an extension of our genitalia, right? Because it allows you to do way more than an average person without access to that money. Women respond to you differently when they see you. You respond differently to yourself, right? The guy with the most money in the group of gents, Kokasi, can tell a grown-ass man, you know, we could be chilling as a bunch of 40-year-old of men in their 40s, and there's another one who's also 40, but because he earns the least out of all of us, we can say to my man, you know, we need ice for the drinks. And we'll give him a credit card, give him my pen, and just, here are my car keys, skachase. You know, that is how we or remind men who are not, I guess, earning or have achieved what success looks like in proximity to money. We emasculate them by doing that to them, right? And that is why money is a huge thing, not just in relationships at home with your partner, with your girlfriend or with your wife, but even in your relationship and friendships with other men.
In your family, right?
Right, and in your family, right? Because the uncle that gives the most money to any family function does not lift a hand, right? If there's a funeral, I'm not going to arrive at 6 a.m. to help people cook. I paid for the food, so it best be ready when I arrive, right? So those are the attitudes that come in.
You know what's hitting me as you're saying this, and hopefully our show doesn't get banned for me saying what I'm about to say. No, because
we just got here, man.
It's weird, bro, because I think we make light of these things. But if you think about what you just said, around the relationship, the story that you were giving around the 27-year-old and what he sees in the dudes, right? So I'm a big believer, like the big part of life is always role modeling. So these guys, older men, call it 60-year-olds that are hitting on like 20-year-old girls or 25-year-old girls, are role modeling to these young men that this is what you actually do as monima. Yeah? So there's that element of it. And in this case, we're talking about it, but it's happening. You're doing it because you have the means to, and the young boy doesn't have the means to. There's that element. But the flip side of that is there's the element where the young girl is accepting of that. They must have also seen it somewhere. You know what I mean? Someone role modeled that to them. So it could either be, right now we're like social media. Fine. I also believe there's like a thing around your society and your home and the people that are around you that you pick up. Is that whole thing like, yes. So they've seen this thing. And if we're honest about this thing is all just pay for play. It's like, it's prostitution, right? Okay. Whether you like it or not. Because you're basically saying, I'm getting into certain relationships because there is an exchange of economics that happens. And what is the Webster's definition of prostitution? Is it doesn't necessarily talks about body, but it's about exchanging, like you're prostituting yourself in exchange for money. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like you're even the dudes, the 60-year-old guy that's going to the 20-year-old girl, Lena, is like prostituting himself, right? And so if you then think about what does that do to the fabric of your society, how do you expect for things to quote unquote get back to the hallowedness of God? Is one big idea. If that's how we're going to operate and think that's cool.
But now I'm also thinking to myself, what does money?
Don't ban us.
What does money do to an insecure man? Yeah. Right. If I'm insecure, if I don't feel like I'm the prettiest or the good-looking guy in the group or the cleverest guy in the group, but I happen to have more money, what does that actually do for me? Yeah. Right. Because I think it's not just social capital. Yeah. It is also power. Right. Yeah, exactly. And we will it quite easily sometimes without even paying attention. Yeah. Right. And for me, it maybe goes back to where we started off, right? Our conversation around what is our relationship with money? Yes. Right. How do we approach money? Yeah. How do we interact with it beyond just spending it or saving it here and there, right? I think there are certain key things that one needs to learn in order to have a healthy relationship with money. And part of that balance is learning to do things that have meaning, but have very little monetary value. Because I think for me, that's what really impacts your relationships, right? It is the simple term, it's not about how much it costs, it's about the thought and the effort behind it, right? It is going back to being grounded at that level and seeing that, money can bring out the worst in us, but it can also allow us to do so much more, both for ourselves and for our kids. But I think for me, like what I'm interested to hear now is you always have these very interesting elements on how to have a good relationship with money. You do. I mean, it's your passion, right? You're in finance, and that's your world. You know what money does. You've seen what it does both on text, but in action. And I think like if you were to chat to that 21-year-old who was seeing the bottle service at Gonka with a bunch of middle-aged men and men in their late 30s and 40s partying it up, and they see that as what money does for them, what are some of the things that what would you say to that kid?
Yeah. So the things I would say would probably not land appropriately for him at that age, but it would be things that I hope it's lessons that 2 or 3 years down the line he'll get, right? And purely because like at a social level, when you're at that age, you want to ball out a little bit, just fine, right? But the more you learn about the principles of money, and look, I'm no guru, but this happens to be the world that I play in, right? The more you learn about the principles of cash, you actually realize how absolutely non-recurring this thing, which is money, can be. And what that means is that most people live under the guise or under the thought that so I make 100 today, I'm going to make 100 tomorrow, I'm going to make 100 the next day. But actually, this thing does this, right? So that 100 is not guaranteed it's over time. That's point number one. I would say that to the kids, like, understand that it's not infinite, this thing, first and foremost. And it's not going to come at you at the same rate all the time, right? So understand that. Because once you understand that, it allows you to make certain choices about how you treat the money that you get, right? And the way you should treat the money that you get is, simple things like go budget. But your budget must have principles. And the principles should be, here's how much I'm spending, here's how much I'm saving, here's how much I'm giving away, right? Okay. 3 buckets: spending, saving, giving away. And the savings bucket, whatever that is in simple terms, should never be tampered with. So I was saying earlier to you and to Unachi, who we work with, like, I have a rule. Like, however amount of money I make, if I make 1 rand today, 10% of that 1 rand gets put away. If I make $100, 10% of that $100 gets put away. If I make $1,000, 10% gets put away. Yeah. Why? Because I big belief that you always have to have a stash somewhere. Right? You always, like, a dude must always have a stash, bro. You must always have something put away. Yeah. Okay. Then it means you're living on whatever's left over. Well, because even whatever's left over, you have to segment. Yeah. And be like, okay, if you stick with my 100 rand idea, you've taken 10 rand and you put it away, you've left with 90. Of that 90, I take 50 and like my lifestyle is on this 50. Whatever I define as lifestyle, like my house, my cars, blah, 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 that kind of thing. The remaining 40 is for other things that are important in life. So of that 40, like if this was me, I take 10 of the 40 and I put in other savings type stuff. Okay. Other savings types, instruments, shares, unit trusts, blah, 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 blah. There's more sophisticated stuff. I take the other 10, like, blah, 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 blah.
Black tax.
And then you take the other 10 is like, okay, this is lifestyle money. Like, okay, restauranting, blah, because you still want to live. And the other 10 for whatever, okay? Now, if you think like that, naturally your lifestyle is going to be impacted by the choice you make. Because you might be earning 100 and you can't live a life of earning 100. You live a life of earning, 60 or 70. You should then be okay with yourself with making those changes or making those sacrifices, because if you don't, you're in a situation where you have nothing in the kitty. Yeah. Right? But you look nice, bro. Them Jordans is fresh, my ace, Yeah. You look nice. What happens if you get into an accident? Like, life happens. What happens if life happens to you? I just had a situation like that 2 weeks ago. Life happened. Yeah. Bruh. Life happened hard. And I was sitting there like, it's just hard to spend the money, but I was thankful, like, yo, thank you. Yeah. So in a cooler way, that's probably the conversation I would have with that kid, is you have to have some method that comes to you and money. And that's the relationship you then develop between yourself and money. And that's what I mean by relationship.
Okay.
Because just like the way you have a relationship with your wife, you know that, hey babe, here, this is what we do, this is what we don't do. Here are the guardrails around our life, here are the we don't allow these kind of people into our life, we don't allow these kind of things, blah, 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 blah. We want to go on holiday once a year, want to do same thing with your dough.
So interesting enough, you've met my brother-in-law, Mzwake.
Yeah.
One of the things that he taught me was, Mzwake is very similar to you when it comes to his relationship with money, right? Mzwake would put away, be it 500 rands every month or 1,000 rands every month, right? Towards December spending.
Yeah.
And his whole argument was that, look, if I put away 500 rands every month for December, when December arrives, the salary that I earn that month is not affected by the Christmas presents and all the dinners and the lunches and whatever troubles that we have, because it's already paid for, it's already planned, right? And we then started to implement that system for family holidays where, myself, Mzwake, his wife, and my wife, every month we put 1,000 rands into an account and it sits there. It earns a bit of interest here and there. And then, we're like, okay, we're going to do one big family holiday in December with everybody. But then because we've done that for, I think now like almost 6 years of doing it, from that same space, we're able to do 2 holidays, right? Which was not the plan, but it has allowed us that ability.
Do you realize?
And you don't see or feel the impact because it's not an immediate, oh, here's money out of my pocket. It's money that was saved and had a specific purpose and target.
Do you realize that you guys are actually running a stokvel?
Oh no, we also have a birthday stokvel.
No,
but I get that, yeah. And look, the truth is, stokvels have built societies, guys.
Exactly, and that's where I'm going.
And they've built the
that's
township.
That's where I'm going with this thing, is that this thing, and blow it, is a new thing.
It is.
Like our parents and our grandparents and their grandparents,
they built houses,
understood that in order to have a lifestyle that I need to have some sort of collective savings thing.
Yes.
And that culture is what has built nations.
Yeah.
Right? Like at the smallest level, it's like stokvel is a cruzar.
Yes.
Ne? So every month you can buy collective savings.
Yeah.
At the biggest level, at least that I've seen, is like stokvel or a collective savings things to build a nation or a country.
Yeah.
How do you think the Saudis are doing it? How do you think the Emirates are doing it? Right? How do you think as an example, like the Royal Bafokeng is where they are? Is because the king back then sent out people that were under his kingdom to go work in Kimberley and the mines. And when you would go out and work, you would bring back 10% of your earnings into the kingdom, and they bought land. They bought land for that. Today, that land is the land that they've mined and has made them who they are. Collective saving. Having a relationship with money will give you the life you want, bro. But you need to be able to be disciplined enough to take a bit off and put away.
Yeah.
And you have to plan. You have to know, like, as abantu. Today, people, and I'm sorry to say this, a lot of people don't know where they're trying to go to, because all they're trying to do is wake up in the morning, put a phone next to their face or next to their little car, blah 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 blah, and be like, "Yimlo." No, homie, that's not you. That is not you.
That's what you want the world to see.
Hey, even if that's what the world sees, that is not you.
So I think, and so I love the idea of stokvel, right?
Emotional.
No, I can see you're ready to take on the pulpit, bruh. But I think for me, it's exactly that, right? You look at the culture of stokvel, specifically in Black communities, and what they achieved in building people's homes and paying people's school fees, and doing a lot of other things, right? And I think to myself all the time, these are some of the principles that men and the gents could actually apply even in our friendships, right? Like weirdly enough, myself and some of our friends, we've decided once a year, at the end of the year, we do like a year-end function to celebrate, because a lot of the gents are entrepreneurs, So like once a year, 200 rands every month from everybody else, and then once a year we dress up, we go to a nice restaurant, and that's the money we spend and nothing out of our pockets, right? Yeah. And small little things like that teach you, one, the ability to focus and stay the course, but it also teaches you the fact that, what comes into your bank account is not an invitation for you to spend now. It is also about spacing and pacing yourself, but it's also about, what are the things that I can put my energy towards that can create more, which is sustainable, right? And I think that's what we want, right? Is to get to a point where money is less about our egos and money is more about the value that we can build for ourselves and those around us. And I think it is also unlearning the power dynamic behind it, because we've allowed money to define us. And I think for me, like any gent that is watching the show, that would be my reflection point is, what does money do to my ego? What does money do to my view of self?
No,
and is that healthy?
Yeah.
And is that healthy? And if it's not healthy, how am I going to change it? And I think put it on paper, write it down, make it visible, like be able to visualize what it is that you have in terms of your own mind, the relationship you have with money. Because when you begin to see that, like when you start to write down your debt and you see it on paper, it sends you a very different invitation to resolving it than when you know it is there somewhere in the sky, right? So those would be my little things. It's just the practical steps, Find a stokvel, some tax-free accounts, read about those, look at small investments that don't need you to have 100,000 rands to kick off. But look at small investments that you can pay attention to and start to circulate your money around that so that you can build slowly.
Cool. So as we wrap up, I'm going to wrap this up.
I was wrapping up. So I was going to say to you, what are your last words?
My last words. And I want to pick up on the collective stokvel thing that you've said. I actually have a challenge for people, and I have a challenge for you, actually, and everyone else that works with us. Is actually this epiphany, if you're going to build something big, you actually can't do it by yourself. Go pick 5, 10, 15, 20 friends, right? Come up with a goal. The goal could be like very simple. For the at the end of the year. And let's put money away for that because it builds a discipline. Or the goal could be huge. Like, hey man, if we can build this stokvel of ours to like 1,000 guys around the world because we now have the internet, and we're all putting away $100 a month to allow us to buy a building at the end of the year. And that building, we're going to rent it out to, MTN or to blah, 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 blah. Go do some stuff like that. Because that's collective visioning, collective action, and it'll actually build discipline around us around you and your group of people around us as Batu. Because right now, to be honest, stokvel being sharp, fine, gents, do it, it's cool. But how fits are you not bombio? What's a like it literally, let's do it and build something much bigger. Because we can. Look at the examples I've just given. Listen to the episode, look at the examples I've given. That's exactly how they've done it. My name is Lebogang Ponyani. This is Mxnzplain.
And I'm Kabelo and Lebo. Thank you for joining us. And we really hope that you got something from this episode. It's about money. It's about how we realign. It's also about community and how we build ourselves and things that last beyond our presence. This is Mxnzplain. It's for me. It's for you. It's for all of us. Royal Bafokeng.